Welcome to part three, making mistakes as a neurodivergent parent. So we have talked to you before about when things go really wrong, and it can be really distressing. And sometimes being a bit dysregulated means that you might be more prone to make even more mistakes. So we want to give you a tool that can really help you to navigate those challenges as you develop and you strengthen your regulation skills over time.
And we also both wanted to be here because we just have to really, really remind you, it doesn't matter if you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, we all definitely make mistakes. It's human and it's part of life. So we're really here to help you go through the process and have a system, but also to be kind and forgiving to yourself as well.
So we would like to share with you some real life examples of what those mistakes really look like for many of us. And remember that they can happen to everyone, being neurodivergent or not. And for example, some people are usually and like most of the time late.
Yeah, it's me.
And so one of the things that we want to share, for instance, I one time took my son to the hospital, like running all through like from school to the hospital to the taxi cab. And I actually was rushing. I was so happy that I was on time with him for like the first time in a while. And then I realized that I took him to the wrong hospital.
So these things definitely happen all the time. My husband keeps talking about how he's really determined to tell jokes at the school gate, despite the fact that when he does, they fall completely flat, and everyone looks at him with like horror in their eyes. And he's like, "All right, just move past it." And I also have someone I know really close to me who told me once that she rushing around. These things happen. Getting to her son's speech and language appointment, was so pleased she got there, and the receptionist asked her, did you remember to bring your son? So these things happen all the time. And we in neurodiversing parenthoods like to call these instances fuck ups. So a fuck up is when you do or don't do something that someone really expected you to do. And that could be as adults or as parents, these expectations people have of you of what you're supposed to do, what you're meant to do, you're supposed to automatically know you're meant to do. And these things happen all the time. So they can be a lot more frequent for neurodivergent people like yourself. And also the issue is that the effects of a fuck up can be much harsher for neurodivergent parents as well.
So we would like you to pause for a moment and think about one of your most memorable fuck ups, and but try to think of something that is actually now makes you chuckle, maybe a little bit when you think about it. But at that time, could have been something that triggered a lot of anxiety, made you feel really uncomfortable, awkward. You may have felt shame, but and now when you think about it, like it's actually okay. Um. So yeah, try to remember with kindness, though. That's very important.
Because, as we said in the line, everybody fucks up sometimes. That is a universal truth.
Absolutely. So when we fuck up, first, and when you do, you might feel like a rush of feelings. Some of the things that you might experience is, for instance, feeling shocked that this happened, like your blood runs cold through your body, through your spine, shiverings all over your spine as well. You might feel sometimes that everything goes really dark, that you cannot move, and that you feel like you totally shut down in that moment, that you cannot relate with it to anyone else, you cannot hear what people say, you cannot relate to that reality or to that event. So after that initial shock that we experience when fuck up happens, we might start catastrophizing. That means that our brain or our mind starts going through all of the different possibilities of how everything might be going wrong for you and your child, thinking of all the worst possibilities that you can imagine. So and it's usual that it's very common that you start having like these self-judgmental thoughts, like really judging yourself really harshly on those times. And you might start feeling rubbish about your parenting ability, not noticing anything good that you do, and so your mind goes really polarizing, like really black and or white. You might feel guilty about possibly a possible harm that you might have caused to your child. Feel embarrassed if other people noticed, and you might experience like perceiving social tension around you. You might not know how to approach other people, and it opens like a flank to other people judging you, so that makes us feel really vulnerable at those times. And can make you also feel different from other parents that who may seem getting it right, or that they don't actually fuck up, right, or they don't.
Although they definitely do.
Definitely, we can assure you that, yeah. So it's really easy to kind of go spiraling and blowing things out of proportion. Definitely.
So some of the challenges of being a neurodivergent person is that you're living in a neurotypical world, and it's just not necessarily designed for people whose brains are working in different sorts of ways. It doesn't suit everybody. And so sometimes that means that fuck ups happen more often. So that can be linked to things like maybe it takes you more time, more work to be okay and to be regulated, and that causes more mess ups. Maybe you miss some of the sort of subtle social cues or the social context and expectations of a situation. It can be so much harder to organize yourself, perhaps related to things like your executive function and the skills that you need to use to plan ahead and organize yourself. It can be hard to prioritize, and you just generally find it harder, the big emotions that you might be feeling as well. And so all of those things make it more likely for a fuck up to happen. But don't worry, we do have a solution for you. So we know that in those moments, it's absolutely mortifying and you might feel horrified at what's just happened. But really, don't worry. We're going to give you our patented fuck up parachute. So this is the fuck up parachute. So just keep in mind, this does not stop your fall. It's not going to make it so that accident, that fuck up didn't happen. It still happened. But this is going to make sure that rather than totally plummeting, you have your landing is a little bit more gentle and you know what to do. So it stops you panicking and you've got a solution. You know what we're doing now.
So rather than going from freeze to fight or flight reaction straight away, once you're shocked by the situation, you actually, with the parachute, we ask you to stop for a moment, and it's going to help you to consider your following actions with a little bit more awareness and more ease.
So the first one is to realize, then regulate, then relate. Then you can reason and start to reconnect. So the very first thing to do is you have to realize when you have that shocked, horrifying moment of emotion, you have to think, whoa, that means I fucked up. I need my fuck up parachute. So the first thing you're doing is realizing and deploy the parachute.
Exactly. So after you actually realize that you fucked up, and then you need to deploy your parachute, the next action that you need to take is to give yourself time to regulate. What this means is that you need to bring yourself to safety. You need to try to, because you have big feelings at that time that you're processing, and you need to stop. So give yourself time to, wherever you are, to give yourself time to kind of breathe, sit down, lay on your bed, go for a little walk, whatever that works, but try not to be acting impulsive at that time. That's the regulate. It's a time to stop and focus on feeling safe. Some exercises that you can do is to touch your chest with your hand, and there's some other breathing exercises and some other examples that we included in your worksheet, but you know that that's what you need to be focusing on.
And then you need to really relate. So this is just about reminding yourself that you're just only human. Give yourself a little bit of grounding. Be accepting of the emotions that you have. You know, you're trying to relate to yourself and be accepting and kind towards yourself. And just remind yourself about that it isn't the end of the world.
Then after that, you can, now that you realized you do started regulating, and you can start relating to the reality of the situation, the messed up, basically. You can start in the third step, the reasoning. You can start think about the immediate consequences of what just happened. So now you can consider what happened in the situation, who were the person or the people involved, your child, and who else, and then to start putting yourself in their shoes a little bit. In your, of course, for you, it had an impact, and maybe for them, but instead of trying to project or think, oh, I think this happened for sure, that they got really upset with me, try to keep an open mind, because it might be a lot of it might be coming out of your fears, that and not actually the actual reality of the situation for the other person, for the other people.
So the last stage is reconnect. So that is actually where you start to try and repair something if something needs repairing. Moving towards actually taking some more positive, well considered, not impulsive, action. To be able to really empathize with others, and if it's really necessary, then apologize once. Don't keep doing it, but apologize. Be really clear, and then try and work on those kind of learning from your mistakes. So these are the different parts of the fuck up parachute, and there is more details in the worksheet to help you move through them.
So now we invite you to put this backup parachute in practice and to start using it. And because we developed this tool for you, especially because we know that sometimes the fuck up itself, so the messing up, is not as terrible, it's not as bad as we think, but the way we react when we made a mistake is actually what it makes it worse, by either taking an impulsive action that you haven't really thought through about the consequences, considering all the different people involved and yourself and your feelings, or could be actually made worse by not acting at all and just let it to kind of get evolve and to grow over time. So this is a tool that's going to take you step by step to actually be in a good place to choose what is the best action to actually make things better for everyone and to learn.
While fuck ups do happen to everybody, really, really frequent fuck ups can happen to neurodivergent people, but they're not because you're neurodivergent, it's because you're struggling to be okay. So the fuck up parachute is this tool that we want you to use and start using right now. That's today. The first time it happens, we want you to use this tool. But to be okay for more of the time, you need to start working on developing the other skills around your regulation, like your physical, your sensory, and your emotional regulation, as well as develop some of your executive function skills. And that's what we're going to cover going on from here.